Hi guys, it's Kobe here, and in today's video we are going to do this.
You're more than the usual. You're so freaking beautiful. There's so many girls in the world, but there's one thing I really want you to know. If it's about you, girl, I'm all in. Nothing that I wouldn't do for love. Nothing that I wouldn't do.
So this whole video was inspired by a comment from Naruto in one of my videos, and he said, "Nice tutorial, can you please do this?" So I checked the video he was talking about, and it was this beat video. So it's basically music, sound controlling spheres, and a text. So let's go ahead and create that. So I'll first of all go ahead and create my sphere. I'll leave it like that, just as it is, and I'll come here and I'll create my clone object from the Mograph menu. So I'll create a clone, and I'll make the child, the sphere child of the clone. I'll actually change it. We can still work with the linear one, but I prefer to use the grid, so I'll change it to the grid, and I'll make everything one by one, except the count on the X. So I'll increase that one to like 50, right? And I'll also increase it a bit more. So like, let's say, yeah, 1002 will be fine, right? The next thing is we go ahead and add our sound effector to it. So I'll right click. I'll come to the Mograph effector. We have several effectors, but I'll choose the sound. So I'll choose sound effector, and I'll come to select the effector tab, and I'll come to down here. You can see soundtrack. So when you click on this, it will tell you load sound. So I choose load sound, and you take it into my Explorer. So I'll actually go ahead and choose maybe I'll choose this one. Yeah. Now if I hit play, the sound is seen, right? So I actually increase my frame. So I'll increase it to like, let's say 1000. But I don't, so before this everything plays, I don't necessarily want all the beginning, the first. I just want it to go somewhere in the middle. So my starting, it'll start from, let's say, frame 400, right? So that it starts somewhere in the middle. So if I hit play again,
You're more than the usual. You're so freaking beautiful.
I like it. So basically the sound is controlling the clones, but it's controlling it as one clone. So I'll select the sound first, and I'll select this rectangle, and I'll move it somewhere down here, right? What I'm trying to do is I'm sampling just this part of the music, like the peaks of it, so that's the only part that will affect, as in how it goes up and down. I don't want the whole thing. I just want just this part, so I can sample this part, right? Now if I come down, so the next thing is I'll come down here and see sampling. It's saying peaks, right? I'll go down and I'll see steps. So now it's affecting the clones individually instead of it as one clone. So you can see it's moving up and down. So the reason why it's moving up and down, if I come to the parameters, it's set to 50. So I'll change it to, let's say, 300 or 500. I think it's 500. It's a bit more. I'll make it 200. Then the scale, I'll choose scale uniform, and I'll make it like 5, right? And I hit play.
This is what I'll say. You're more than the usual.
The next thing I'll do is I'll actually add dynamics. So I'll right click on the clone object, come to simulation, rigid body, and if I hit play, you can see it will fall as one object, right? So I'll select and come to individual element, and I'll choose all, and I'll hit play again. Now it explodes, so it's pushing them away. So what we have to do is come to force, and increase follow position to like, let's say 15, and follow rotation as well, very high. Even actually the follow rotation actually make you 15 as well. Now let's hit play.
This is what I'll say. You're more than the usual. You're so freaking beautiful.
So the next thing I'm actually going to do, I'll come to the sound effector, and then I'll come down here to where the decay is, the sample under the sampling, and I'll actually increase the decay to, like, let's say 10. What the decay does is it makes the sound, like, it makes it settle. It doesn't make it like per steps like that. It settles it smoothly and all that. So that's what I'm trying to use the decay to do, to make the spheres like smoothly settle so that it doesn't look so hard. Maybe I'll even reduce the strength of the music to maybe 80. Right? This is what I'll say. You're more than the usual. So basically this is what we have. So the next thing is I'm going to create the text. So I'll come here and I'll create the mode text. Now if I come to the text, you can see, let me move the text a bit forward and let's see what's happening. You can see the text is already being affected by the sound. And the reason why is when I was creating the text, I had the sound effector selected. So automatically, when you come to the letters here, you can see the sound effector has been dropped in here. Right? So if I hit play, you can see it will be affecting the text. This is what I'll say. You're more than right? But I don't want it to affect the text in this way. I want it to affect the text as one object. I don't want it to affect the letters. So I'll actually delete it from the sound, the letters, and I come to word and I actually drag and drop it in here. So now it affect it as one text, right? So we are halfway there. Then the next thing is I'll actually come in here, change the text. I'll align it to the middle, and I'll actually use Naruto. I'll use Naruto's name to that's what I'm going to use. Right. I'll actually change it to bold and actually increase it to like the depth to even 60. Come to caps, make it 5, fillet cap, make it 5, and the steps increase it to like 5 as well, 5, to make it smoother for reflection when like you're adding materials and stuff like that. Right, so now if I hit play, everything is working fine, but the sphere is not like interacting with the text. So I'll go ahead and also create another. We can actually copy and paste this one to this one. So if I select this, hold Control and click and drag it, it will copy this to the text. So if I hit play, now I can see you're more than now it's affecting the text as well. So what I'll do is I'll come to the text and the forces. I'll actually increase the follow rotation a bit more to maybe even 40, and even the follow position to a little bit high, 25. I want it to be individual, but I don't want it to affect it that much. So the next thing is I'll actually move it forward a little bit. Okay. And now let's see what happens. I think it's still affecting it a lot, so I'll still move it a little bit forward. Yeah, I kind of like this a little bit more. I'll actually come to the cloner object and come to the grid, increase the size here, make it a bit longer so that, yeah. You're more than the usual. You're so freaking beautiful. So basically, this is the way we do. If we don't want it to affect the individual letters like the way it's doing to, we can actually come to the dynamics of the tag of the text and come to dynamics collision and put it off, and now it just affects the text. You're more than the usual. The text as one, but I kind of like the individual one, so I'll leave it this way. This is what I'll say. You're more than the usual. So the next thing is I want to use the color of the sound effector. So when you come down here, you can see it has some orange to yellow gradients. I want to use that one as the color. So I'll come to the perimeter, actually, yeah, the perimeters, and you can see the color. You have color mode. I'll use effector color, and now that's the color which is going to affect the clone and the mode text. All right, so if I should come in here, I can actually adjust it somewhere in here a little bit that way. I kind of like it this way, so
This is what I'll say. You're more than the usual. You're so freaking beautiful.
so basically, like, I'm happy with what I have right now, but the next thing is I want to render, like add material and render. But you see, when we render, everything is fine, but it's just the color of the effector, and we are not going to. If I should create a new material, apply it to the clone, you can see now that replaces them, and I want that exact color, so that I can, and with that exact color too, I can render, but I can't get reflections and stuff. So for me to get the color from the Mograph, like from the Mograph effector, what I'll do is I'll double click to open the material editor, and when I come to the texture down here, I'll go to, see, we have Mograph, and in there we have color shader. So if I should choose the color shader, instantly it recognizes the effector color that we were using on the object. So now we can go ahead and add our reflections and stuff. So I'll come to reflectance. I'll actually delete this particular default specular we have, and I'll create a new one. Add so I'll add GGS for now, but I can still come in here to the type and change it to any of them I want. So now I'll choose the legacy reflection, and now you can see it's only the reflection that we are seeing. We are not seeing anything, so we have to actually add it on top of the color so that it will show through, right? So instead of the, when it comes to the attenuation from average, we choose add additive, and now it's adding the reflection to the color that we have, right? The next thing is I'll actually come in here and I'll use a Fresnel. So instead of, like, come down here, Fresnel, and now, but I don't kind of like this Fresnel, so I'll clear it, and I'll come down here to the layer Fresnel here, and I'll choose dielectric, right? I kind of like this Fresnel, so I'll make it maybe 1.5, and now I'll start adding background. So let's go ahead and create our background. So I'll create a normal plane, like our backdrop, a normal plane, make it a little bigger. In fact, let me actually go in here, make it like 10,000 by 15,000 on the Y, because I want it very huge to cover every place. Right now I want to bend it, so I'll use the bend deformer. So I'll select the bend deformer, click on it, make it a child of the plane, and I'll change the angle of the bend deformer. So right now it's facing the wrong direction, so I'll actually turn it to 90 here, and let me actually bend it to see where you're facing. Then I'll turn it 90 somewhere, undo 90 in here. So now I can actually bend it this way. Yeah, this is how I want it. So I'll now move the plane a bit backwards, and I'll increase the segment of the plane so that it will be smooth. If I check right now, it's like it's breaking, so I'll increase it a bit more to like even 120, and I'll reduce this one to like just 4 or something, because you don't need those segments. Actually increase it 150. The next thing is I'll actually make the bend deformer a bit bigger, so that it will smoothly blend in. The next the blend I'll keep violent. All right, then now I'll create my camera. So I just click on the camera icon here and it'll create a camera. Make sure everything is set to 0, and now I'll zoom in here. Actually, make sure this one too is set to 0. Then I'll do it minus 1200. So minus 1000. Actually, kind of, let's leave it at 4, and now let's hit play to see.
This is what I'll say.
Yeah, I kind of like it. So I'll push the backdrop down and I'll increase the bend a bit. Yeah, so I'll create a material for the backdrop. So I'll double click here to create a material. Click, select and drag it on here. We can just drop it straight on the plane here, but I'll prefer to do it here. I'll drop it on this one. And now if we should hit render, this is what we have, nothing fancy. So the next thing you have to do is start adding our light into the scene. So to start adding light, the first thing is I'll go ahead, come in here. Actually, let me move this out. Right, and this is where we can find our light. You can see this light icon, or you can come to create and choose light in here. So I'll choose an area light, right, and I'll make it, this one will be like a top light. Maybe rotate it 70% in the Y, and I'll make it a little very big, quite big in here as well. Move it upwards like that, right, and let's hit render to see what we have. Let's get out the camera and move it. Oh, okay, so you see it's not affecting, it's not. So actually I'll change the axis from local to world, so move it this way. And now if I hit render, yeah, kind of like it, but I don't like the way it's like coming straight. So I'll come to the light details, and the fall off I'll use inverse square physical, right? If I hit render, you can see this one is a bit different. So this one gives it like a little bit like of a real world simulation, how light slowly bright from one angle to another, right? So I'll use that one maybe. Yeah, so I like this one for now. Then the next thing is I'll create light for the whole so I'll create another light, area light, make this one huge as well, and I'll flip it on the other side. So this one is come to the coordinates 90, right? Make it huge, because this one like covers the whole scene. It's just to brighten the whole scene and all that. And I'll create another one for the other side. So I'll make this one -90 and the -90 and move it in there. So let's see what we have. This is basically our scene. Right now you can see there's reflection, but we are not seeing it, and it's because the light, Cinema 4D light, you have to tell it that it should be seen in reflection. So if we select the light and come to details, come in here, you can see show in reflection. You make sure you check that thing, and now when you render, it should start showing the reflection. Actually, let me come in here and increase the roughness. I'll take off the specular strength that we have here. I'll put it to 0, and I'll increase the roughness a little bit, like 5. And I'll come down to the Fresnel that I use, the dielectric, and see, increase it a little bit more to, like, let's say 2, for the reflection to show through a bit over. So I hit render. Yeah, you can see we are getting the reflection. Let me actually hit play.
You're more than usual. It's so free.
I kind of like this frame, so I'll start using this frame to light. So yeah, you can see there it's catching the reflections and everything, but the whole scene is very bright. So actually bring it down a bit more, and you can't see, like, there's no depth, you can't feel the shadow in it. So the next thing is we start adding shadows. So I'll select the main light, the one, so I'll actually name it this one top light, and I'll actually call this one side side light 1, same thing, actually copy it. Call this side light 2, right? And now we actually select the top light and change the, actually come to general, sorry, and the shadow type, it's set none, so there it's not casting any shadow, so we set it to area shadow, and each area shadow gives you a accurate shadow. So now if you start render, you can see a bit of shadow in there. You select these ones, and those ones we use soft shadow because that one renders faster, right? You can see, yeah, it's casting. Or let's actually see what the area shadow does. Yeah, and we use area shadows for everything, and but because it's casting shadow, like it's a bit dark in there, and we might not like the way it is. So the next thing I'm going to use is GI, global illumination, to actually make a bounce and actually light in there and everything as well. If you don't like GI, because actually the GI adds to the render time, but if you don't like it, you can actually reduce it, like as in find ways around using light and stuff to bounce around to reduce it. But typically I'll use GI to avoid like a lot of stuff. So select, click here, and I come to render settings, then I'll come to effect, and I'll choose global illumination, right? I'll leave it as default for now, and let's come in here and let's render to see the way it looks. It will slow the rendering, but so you can see now, like it's bouncing in to fill the places that are dark and all that, to also add a bit of light. I think the lights are too bright, right? So then one thing I'll do is actually reduce the intensity, especially this highlight. I'll probably tint it a little bit, make it a bit cool a bit. And the top light, that one too, I'll actually also reduce the intensity a little, maybe 90. And let's render again to see what we have. Yeah, basically that's our scene created. So you can see that when it comes to the rendering, there's a bit of noise and stuff in there. So I'll actually come to the render settings again. I'll change the rendering from standard to physical, right? And I'll come to the physical rendering. And now the sampling quality is set low. I'll actually increase it a little. I'll increase it to high, and let's render to see how it looks when you are done. So our rendering is done, and you can see it looks clean and everything. So I'm happy with the way it looks and everything. So all I can do is I can simply go ahead and start doing my render settings and everything, and render it into After Effects, and now add my sound. So when you are rendering it, one thing is you don't render it in video form, so you're not going to get sound. So you render it in image sequence or whatever sequence that works for you. Then you take it into any compositing application, but typically After Effects. Then now you add the sound there to actually get what you want. So basically this is how the setup is done. Then so for me to actually do the render settings, we can also render without the background, so that we can give it the background that we want in After Effects as well. So to do that, you just take off the plane, just disable the plane, and make sure when you are rendering, make sure that this thing is checked. So I'll come in here. So this is my render settings, right? And I'll come to the save. Now I'll save it where I want to render it to, wherever I want to render it to. I'll make sure, typically I use PNG sequence, and if there's no background and I want to have like an alpha, I'll make sure this alpha is checked. And if I don't have like object passes and all that, I'll come here, maybe make sure save this one composition. My target application is After Effects, and then I'll include 3D data, or sometimes maybe I want the camera angles, if the camera moved or some object moved that I want the data, I can use that one as well. Then the next thing is I'll actually come to the output and put the frame rate that I want. then I'll say all frames. Like if I want the whole frame, or maybe I want it from one point to another, I can also type in here. And that's basically the whole setup. Make sure this thing, everything is set to, well, you go through to see if you've done something that you've not checked. Everything is fine. We will leave it as high the way you want, right? Then the next thing is we go ahead and hit render from here. So basically this is how the tutorial, like the video, you could do with it. You can actually go ahead and add, like, let's say random effector and stuff to it to make it a bit more like interesting. For instance, I can come to Mograph Effector, random, add it to the yeah, so random is added. I'll come to, where do we call it, the random, come to parameters, and I'll change the scale as well. So uniform scale maybe -1, and I'll go back, hit play, and see.
You're more than the usual. You're so freaking beautiful. There's so many girls in the world, but there's one that only wants you to know. And if it's about you, girl, I'm all in. Nothing else for love. Nothing else for the girl. You give it all.
So basically that's it. If the sound or everything is too much, you can actually go ahead and reduce it, because it's a bit random in dynamics and everything. You have to play around with stuff a little to get exactly the way you want it. So basically that's how everything went. Play around with it. When it comes to designing like Mograph stuff, it's not, you have to be a bit playful to get exactly what you want. So thanks for watching, and thanks. If there's anything you want to ask, you can go ahead and ask, and if I can do a tutorial or anything on it, I'll also try my best to do tutorial to answer your question. So thanks for watching, and thanks for supporting. Please subscribe to the channel and always keep supporting. Thanks for everything. See you in the next one.